1.
Okay, English students, this is a quick tutorial on complete sentences. If you've been sent here, that means you need to take notes and you need to make some changes to your writing. So let's go over this really quick. So here's some basics on complete sentences. Complete sentences are sentences like this. I ran to the store. Sentences like I ran. These aren't great sentences. They're very short, but they are complete sentences because they have two things in them. Well, actually three. They have a subject, a verb, and they have a complete thought. So in the sentence, I ran to the store, we have a subject and a verb, and we technically have a preposition over here. But the point is that we have a subject and a verb, and it makes a complete thought. Even if I have a sentence as short as I ran, it's still a complete sentence because I have a subject and a verb. The problem is that oftentimes in our culture right now, we are writing in fragments. A sentence fragment happens when we do not have a subject and a verb, or we don't have a complete thought because of some other factors, some other things. I'm going to show you some ways that sentence fragments are created. As a side note, we also call these independent clauses, these complete sentences. We're going to use that wording, that phrasing later when we talk about grammar. But for now, what I'm concerned about is that you write incomplete sentences. So here are some ways that students are not writing incomplete sentences. Fragments. Oftentimes, students will write with sentence fragments. Go ahead and write these down. Here's some ways that students start their sentences and create fragments. If you start a sentence after, even, or although, or across and over, who and which, if you don't put a comma in the middle of the sentence, if you start off your sentence with what we call a subordinating conjunction, or a dependent word, we can oftentimes create a fragment. So for example, this is not a sentence. Over many years, even when she begs him to stop, or which is turned against him. If you read those sentences, oftentimes if you step back and just ask yourself, did that make sense? Can that stand alone? No. Over many years, what? Even when she begs him to stop. Well, what? We're asking the question because of these dependent words. These words create for us a desire for the rest of the sentence to make sense. So we have a subordinate clause, and we have some other things, a relative clause and a prepositional phrase. I don't want you to get too locked up in all those names. What I care about more is that you recognize that this cannot stand by itself, okay? Another way that students do this is by using what's called a past participle, using ing or ed, and they'll create a sentence like this. Start off with the sentence with the ing, standing at his workstation. We can't have a sentence. It will not stand alone that way. So instead, we can write a sentence like this, though. Standing at his workstation, Jake talks about women and religion. Probably not a great idea, but the point is that you've got your comma right there in the middle. You're going to have to join that sentence, okay? We also have some other examples. Sometimes I'll see students do this. To pay his bills, to find his money, two fragments, or we call an infinitive with the to. Another way to do this is if you start off a sentence with except for his friends, that doesn't make sense by itself. Also throws him out of the bar, okay? The word also, starting off this way. Here's some other ones. We don't have a subject in these, but can't wake him up. Then gets stabbed. Okay, all of these sentences are non-sentences because they don't make sense. So again, you have to have a subject and a verb, but it does have to make a complete thought. It needs to make sense. So even though you have a complete thought right here, I ran, if you start off a sentence like this, when I ran, okay, if I start off that way, it's not going to have that complete thought. So notice how I do have a subject and a verb, but it doesn't have that complete thought. So we need to make sure that we do that. After watching this video, what I want you to do is to go ahead and go back and correct your writing. Where was it that you did not have a complete sentence?